It was always going, enriching and classy for Bengali literature. Then, a man of different breed came up with whole new numerical lessons to splash it out to all classes of people. The craze about him to the masses became unreal day by day with the publications of his novels, writings, movies, etc. And it is needless to say, all of his works being #1 bestsellers and super hits. He is the legendary literary of Bangladesh, Humayun Ahmed. Talking about him, Times of India quoted, Humayun was a custodian of the Bangladeshi literacy culture whose contribution single-handedly shifted the capital of Bengali literature from Kolkata to Dhaka without any war of revolution. The dramas written and directed by Humayun were vastly popular to all classes of people for their top-notch comical aspects. But there are also some eye-opening deep philosophies were hidden behind them. In this video, we are about to get a deep dive into his philosophical artwork from one of his masterpiece drama called Udbhot Utt, and we'll analyze it with real-life scenarios. The scene starts with a kind of sadist novel writer relaxing on his terrace and having a curious look to the slum near down his building. The purpose is to write more tragedy around an unfortunate character from his novel, which is still in writing process. The damages he is bringing upon the character are:
তুমি তো একজন হতদরিদ্র ব্যক্তি, অ্যাক্সিডেন্টে তোমার পা কাটা গেছে। তোমার স্ত্রী দীর্ঘদিন খেতে না পেয়ে ক্ষুধার জ্বালায় পতিতাবৃত্তি গ্রহণ করেছে। তোমার থ্রোট ক্যান্সার হবে। তোমার স্ত্রী, কন্যারা কেউ তোমার কাছে থাকবে না। সমগ্র সমাজ তোমাকে এড়িয়ে চলবে আবর্জনার মতো।
আমি কি কান ধরে পারবো না স্যার?
না, পারবে না, কেননা আমি তোমাকে তৈরি করেছি এমন করে যে তুমি ভাঙবে অথচ মচকাবে না।
And what all these are about?
সেটা তোমার নিয়তি।
Now the character keeps coming out of the novel to haunt the writer in his dreams.
আমার ঠ্যাং ফেরত দেন, যদি না দেন এই দাদিয়া কোপ দিয়ে আপনার ঠ্যাং কাটবো।
তুমি তো আসলে আমার উপন্যাসের একটা চরিত্র, তাই বলো, এতক্ষণ স্বপ্ন দেখছিলাম।
Now come out from the fictional world and revisit the plot. Let's look at the fragility of human existence. How vulnerable it is to the nature. Human race, most of the time unfortunate and victim of the tragic show called life, despite being called the top creation of all species. There are endless catastrophes in which we have no control over. We are one cyclone away to get flew away. Every year, big number of people losing their lives in natural disaster or some fatal accidents. Over 2 billion of people are living below the poverty line. Each day is like a battle of survival for them. Over 15% of total population are challenged in some way, and they have to cope up with the normal people. There are also man-made disasters, demolishing every good exists in this world. People are frustrated, devastated, out of their mind, and becoming disasters on their own. The society is given the blame for it, where the nature built the same society.
আমি তো কিছু করাচ্ছি না, সমাজ সবকিছু সমাজই করাচ্ছে।
লিখবেন আপনি, দোষ হবে সমাজের না?
Our personal life is never lack of those tragedies. Some of us were that weak student, ridiculed by all, badly beaten by parents, and maybe got abused. Some of us were that good nerd of the group that got bullied by his peeps all the time and cried alone. Then comes adulthood. Some were seeking date but never finding one. Some got cheated by their partners, while the love of the life of some got married to others. Some splitted badly with their partners, resulting in divorce. And some have the wound of never becoming parents. And there is the common problem of today, doing what you don't want to do for livelihood and becoming who you don't want to become in the pressure of the society.
15 साल में तू मेरे जैसा हो सकता है.
Oh shit! No!
It is possible, it is possible.
नहीं! ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. कह दो कि ये झूठ है.
And as a result of it, there is a dull pain throughout your life and never figuring out what actually wrong with you. Your tragedies reach next level when your nearest and dearest one get diagnosed with a deadly illness. Your healthy family gets buried alive when one of your kids decides to move away from you. One after one tragedy keeps visiting your life. When you get some moments of happiness, you're afraid to share it fully, as back of your head, you're thinking about another probable tragedy which may be on its way. Then there are kids, whether it's your own or others. Their pain hurts your soul badly. It's understandable that you wet your phone screen with tears watching the kids suffering in war. They got trapped between brain-dead grown-ups. And some are stunned by the horror show going on. What they have done to deserve this? You ask, how can the destiny writer be so cruel to us?
আমি লেখক লেখকের হৃদয়হীন হতে হয়.
And there is a reason behind it.
তুমি চিরকুমার মানুষ, সংসার নেই, পুত্র নেই, কন্যা নেই. যদি সংসার থাকতো তাহলে তোমার উপন্যাসটা অন্যরকম হতো.
Yeah, destiny has no feelings for you because it doesn't have any. We keep getting crushed by one after one tragedy and ask, what's the point to bear all of this? Why do we even exist? This brings upon the existential crisis. This absurd feeling put us to an experience called Kafkaesque. The term Kafkaesque came from unique dark writing style of a novelist called Franz Kafka, whose writings only published after his death and made him one of the prominent figures of literature. Any experience resembles with his stories is now referred as Kafkaesque. This term tends to refer the situation where people get caught in the bureaucratic nature of capitalistic and government system, which is so unclear and complex that no one ever comprehensively know why this complexity even exists, and why they are doing what they are doing in this system, while the system doesn't care about them. But the depth of Kafkaesque seems to extend much more than this and questions the entire existence. In Kafka's famous novel The Trial, we see the protagonist Joseph K. suddenly getting arrested from his home in the morning without any clarification from the police officer. Then he pushed through a long, absurd trial full of confusions, corruptions, and chaos. K never came to know why he was arrested and still remains guilty in his final verdict. In his another famous novel, The Metamorphosis, the main character suddenly in the morning wakes up as an insect and goes through terrible consequences. As an insect, he failed to meet up the expectation from his family and the society, and he also never found any explanation of what happened with him. In both scenarios, the protagonist suddenly pushed into absurd circumstances without any explanation and forced to face senseless sufferings and become powerless to control any of what is happening. We can also picture a similar situation for the fictional character Hamid from the drama, who also getting crushed continuously by the unexplained destiny. As a human being, we find it difficult to accept the absurdity of life, so we take shelters of many concepts and fairy tales that make our sufferings on this earth feel meaningful. Being the mindful species, we desire to be the matter of significance to the universe. by claiming that natural disasters are happening because of man's ethical choices, or personal tragedies are happening because of the wrongdoing of individuals' previous life, or we are going through an important holy test. This is like the denial of the absurd reality of life. It's a similar case to Hamid's, where he is denying his destiny and chasing the destiny writer. At this point, I would like to recite some wonderful lines from a great poem by Charles Bukowski. Dinosauria we, born like this, into this, fooled by this, used by this, pissed on by this, made crazy and sick by this, made violent, made inhuman by this. The heart is blackened, the finger reach for the throat, the gun, the knife, the bomb. The fingers reach toward an unresponsive God. The finger reach for the bottle, the pill, the powder. We are born into this sorrowful deadliness. We try to escape the tragedy side of the world because we overfear the pains and overrate the pleasures. We want to hold on to the concepts that feed our hope. Writing a letter to one of his friends, Kafka wrote, "I think we ought to read only the kind of books that wound us or stab us. If the book we are reading doesn't wake us up with a blow to the head, what are we reading for? So that it will make us happy? Good Lord, we would be happy precisely if we had no books." Not to deny that happiness is clearly one of the basic needs for healthy life, but the way we pray for it, worship things for it, and try to achieve it create all the fuss and unhealthy situations. On the other side, any form of sadness creates bitterness within us. The inside bitterness makes us rude to life and mean to people. In consequences, a bitter cycle gets formed and life becomes worse. On the top of his countless misfortune, when Hamid caught fever, he became rude to his family. He slapped his darling child for demanding a good night story. His wife also left him for his misbehavior at that moment. Momentary bitterness led him to more sufferings. So being bitter to sadness is surely not an ideal reaction. So wondering how to approach life then? Knock knock, says Nietzsche. Fredrich Nietzsche. For those who don't know, Fredrich Nietzsche is gem of a German philosopher of 19th century. You can't keep this man out while talking about modern intellectuality. Nietzsche came up with a particular approach to understand life. Nietzsche perceived the universe through the characteristics of Dionysus. In ancient Greek mythology, Dionysus is the god of great contrast, who is the divine example of delightfulness and at the same time causing all the sufferings to all. Long story in short. This mythological god of contrast is symbolic to the tragic contrast exists within all the things in life. Creation and destruction, life and death, conflict and harmony, joy and terror are inseparable from each other. Having this insight to the nature, one can come to the information that meaningless crisis in this world is inevitable with the meaningless existence in this world. This affirmation is termed as Dionysian affirmation by Nietzsche. This affirmation is to accept that pain and suffering are the integral essence of all things. With the unexplainable pleasures like breathing and loving come unexplainable sufferings. Removing the suffering is like removing the pleasure. On deeper note, removing the death is removing the life itself. This understanding builds an attitude towards life that Nietzsche called Dionysian, where one accepts all the sufferings life brought upon him rather being anxious about it all the time. This attitude makes one to say yes to life in totality. Nietzsche writes, "The saying yes to life, even in its strangest and hardest problems, the will to life, that is what I call Dionysian." This attitude helps us to achieve the great health in Nietzsche's word. This health enables individual not only to endure but also to worship the tragic contrast of life. Nietzsche wrote, "As a result of this tragic worldview, the tragic man affirms even the hardest lot on earth, realizing that as long as he possesses the great health, pain, suffering and tragedy are to be not only welcomed but worshipped as the great stimulants of his life, and that he will only grow stronger through the accidents that threaten to destroy him. Those who lack this great health will only have glimpse of terror side of life and will slander the beautiful existence." At one point, Hamid came to realize that his prey and agony are having no effect in his destiny.
কে বানাইছে নিয়তি? আপনি বানাইছেন। বদলাই দেন।
সেটা সম্ভব না।
He decided not to hold any grudge anymore against life. Rather, he accepted what is happening and what is yet to come in his life.
তুমি হাসপাতালের বারান্দায় পড়ে থাকবে এবং রক্ত বমি করবে।
আচ্ছা।
He said yes to life, the future of the great health. But that doesn't mean
ভাঙবে অথচ মাচকাবে না।
no, human will break down into tears. He has feelings, and it's a pride which he shouldn't hide.
স্যার আপনি মস্কান না। আমি মস্কাবো। আমার চোখে পানি পড়বে।
This cry doesn't pray for any miraculous favor, but it gives the feel to be human. In that very moment, Hamid decided not to disturb the unresponsive writer anymore with his demands.
না স্যার, আমি আর ভিক্ষা নিতে আসবো না। আমি ভিক্ষুক না স্যার। আমি চাই।
He also acknowledged his responsibilities towards other human beings who depend on him by rejecting the dinner invitation from the writer.
আমার বাচ্চা দুটো না খেয়ে আছে। আমি আপনার সাথে নানান পদের খাওয়া খাবো। এটা কি সম্ভব স্যার?
These responsibilities are influenced by the inner compassion he had for his fellow strugglers. It was the earlier scene where Hamid gave shelter to another homeless kid while he was struggling with his own life. Hamid took the charge of what is under his control. He is aware of the duties to serve as a human.
গ্রিপের বাইরে চলে যাচ্ছ আমি নিজেই কাজকর্ম শুরু করে দিয়েছো আরেকটা মেয়ে খুঁজে পেয়েছো তুমি এটা তো আমি লিখি
একটা বাচ্চা মেয়ে রাস্তায় কাঁদতেছে আমি তার ফলে চলে আসুন আপনার ধর্মে না থাকতে পারে আমার আছে
Moreover, he showed the trait of humanity by advising the writer to take care of his health.
ডাক্তার আপনার যে ওষুধ দিছে ঠিক মতো খায় শরীরের যত্ন নিয়ে স্যার আমি যাই
Hamid is also not greedy for cheap pleasures, as when he found a bag full of money in park, he decided to return it to its owner. The acceptance of life kept him ethical. Finding back the big amount he lost, the owner tried to reward Hamid with money. But Hamid denied the offer. It's a clear statement from him that virtue is not for sale. He doesn't do good with the fascination of any reward. We know that if we are helping someone and expecting something in return, we are doing business, not kindness.
আপনারা কি জন্য ভিক্ষা দেন ভাবছেন দয়া করেন ইহা ভুল ভিক্ষা দিয়ে আপনারা সব কামান
Many of us do good deeds with the expectation of getting some appreciation or in the hope of getting afterlife facilities. We all know someone who is complaining about getting bad return from life after being so virtuous. Virtue is not something which should be rewarded. Virtue is the way of life. We can accumulate the takings from the drama in three components. Acceptance. Accept the fact that the universe is a mystery. Suffering is the inevitable part of our existence, along with all the pleasures. Accepting this gives you the strength of living fully. Stoic philosophy says there is tremendous power in acceptance. To fully accept suffering and misfortune frees you from fear. You can appreciate good times because you are not tormented by the knowledge that they will end. They will. Such is the way of things, and we must live in accord with reality. We are victim, but never the only target of this universe, as everyone is going through different sufferings in different levels. Destiny doesn't have any personal agenda with us. So accept your own part of fate and keep moving with the courage to play your part in this cosmos. This acceptance not only capables us to fight through our struggles, but also makes us compassionate about other people around us. It reminds us what Plato said, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle." This leads us to the next component, love. From a state of mutual vulnerability and crisis in this universe, we can feel the pain and suffering of our fellow human beings. Charles Bukowski stated, "We are all going to die, all of us. What a circus! That alone should make us love each other, but it doesn't. We are terrorized and flattened by trivialities. We are eaten up by nothing." The realization of the trivialities of all other things in life deprives us from being cruel to others, rather encourages us to provide love in the best interest of all. When a man accepts the inevitable sufferings of life, he no longer depends on others' love. Rather, he takes authority of the things which is under his control. That moment he discovers that loving is much more fulfilling than being loved, and providing welfare is much more richer than receiving it. This consequently means loving the world entirely. It's like saying the world, "Take care of yourself, world, and be happy how you want to be." It's like going through hell while facilitating heaven, telling encouraging stories by progressing through horror shows. In his very poem, Bukowski expressed his wish, "And there will be the most beautiful silence never heard, born out of that. The sun still hidden there, awaiting the next chapter." Love will pave our way to the last component, virtue. Understanding the absurdity of universe put individual into conclusion that no happiness is ever after, or enough to make life fulfilled, and no sacrifice for the love and truth is deadly. This demolished the greed of happiness and fear of sufferings. Only way to live is to live virtuously, and only way to simplify life is to be honest with yourself and other. Do what is right without thinking about the results, and most importantly, with compassion and without any hypocrisy. This virtuous lifestyle breeds self-respect, and this is the only way to lead fulfilled life. In Seneca's word, life is never incomplete if it is an honorable one. At whatever point you live life, if you live it in the right way, it is whole. By the time I am creating this content, the world is going through a great distress caused by a pandemic. Many of us won't survive this and will be passed away. The global economy is likely to fall apart. We have to accept that we cannot change things by panicking. We can influence the future with some of our action, but the results are way beyond of our control. No worry can change this. However, we are in the full authority of the things which is our under control and responsibilities. We have to become careful about the nearest people of us. We should be responsible to the community we belong to. Our own single mistake can cost the whole community's health. And the current situation gives you the opportunity to come closer to your loved ones. So be more loving then. And finally, become honest to yourself. Ask yourself, what I will be doing if I am leaving the world in a month or a day. Deep inside, you'll say, I will be myself. I'll do the things right for me without any greed and fear. I will become myself. And do put work on it. When you become honest with yourself, you become honest with your life and other people. Getting back to Udbhot Utt, the author from the drama decided to end his novel with a dream, where Hamid will find his wife and will sing how he used to sing. This reminds Seneca's line, how can you prove whether at this moment we are sleeping and all our thoughts are a dream, or whether we are awake and talking to one another in the waking state? Then why not live a dream with our selfless heart's wildest imagination? Let's fly with the wings it provides.